10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, a very, very warm welcome, guys. Hello, it's Cassim, and welcome to the third episode of Student Problems. Firstly, want to start off by thanking you very, very much for joining me. I want to thank you very much for taking the next kind of hour to spend with me as I share with you some ideas, as I share with you some thoughts, some philosophies that maybe perhaps might be able to help you to become a higher, fuller expression of who you're capable of becoming. So there is four subjects that I want to share with you, or four problems or four scenarios which I want to share with you that perhaps you can use as a vehicle, as a way to be able to identify something in your life that may be able to set as a stepping stone or as a blueprint for you to becoming a higher, fuller expression of yourself, to you getting some of the things that you want in your life. Those four things are: number one, we've got a guy here who says that he had drunk sex with his flatmate. The second one that we're going to talk about is a guy whose mum is making him pay unexpected bills. The third one, we're going to talk about, should I go and visit my boyfriend? He's struggling with the lockdown. And the fourth one that I want to talk about and that I want to share some ideas with you on is, should I resist or should I not resist? And that is all around resitting his exams, resitting his A-levels. So before we get into today, guys, you know, I always ask you guys, if you want to join our community, if you want to support me, you know what to do. Jump on my YouTube channel, Cassimotive, literally Cassim with an otive, as in motive, and support me, subscribe to it. I'd really, really, really appreciate it. But apart from that, let's get straight into it. Remember, guys, all these questions that I'm going to answer today are off the cusp. So I haven't actually planned any of these. I've literally gone and found the questions, and I've just literally written them down, and I am going to literally answer them and think about them as if it was me and you talking in this exact moment. So let's read the first one. The first one that I want to talk about today goes something like this, and it's entitled, Had Drunk Sex with a Flatmate. So this guy says, I really don't know what to do right now, and my head is all over the place. Basically, long story short, last night our house had a New Year's Eve celebration drinks. We all got a little bit drunk, and I ended up having sex with my flatmate. I'd liked her for a while, which she knows, but she doesn't feel the same way, and she's told me that I'm more like a brother. Oh, that's savage. Man, that's savage. I mean, before I continue with this, let me tell you that if you're a girl and you are listening to this, one of the worst possible things that you can say to a guy is to say to him that you're more like his brother. I mean, it's so painful for a girl to say that to a guy. But anyway, nevertheless, let's continue with this. So he says, I really like her. She's told me that I'm more like a brother. We were both pretty drunk, and she told me she's really sorry, but now being incredibly awkward. I don't know how to approach the situation or what to do. Any advice? Can things be normal again? Okay, so I want to begin by saying that, number one, the situation that you've experienced is a situation that many, 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 many of us, including myself, have been through this very situation. I think every single person who's listening to this, we've all been in situations in our lives where we've liked somebody, but that love hasn't been reciprocated. The person doesn't feel the same way about us in the way that we feel about them. The person isn't at the same point in our journey. I think, let's go back a bit and let me share something with you which I learned. I've learned that it is possible for two people who are meant to be together to meet at the wrong time. And I think many of you guys who are listening to me, you've experienced this, you've seen this happen, where you've got two incredibly amazing people who both are right for each other, but they've just met at the wrong time in their lives. or one of them is really mature and the other one's really immature, or one of them wants children but the other one just isn't ready to have kids. There's been that situation, and actually, if you look at many of the people who are together, they tend to use phrases like, I've had an opportunity to interview a lot of people who have been married for 15 years or more, and these individuals use phrases like, I just knew, it was the right timing, we just met at the right time. And what essentially they're trying to suggest and trying to say is that there was an element of luck, an element of grace, an element of the right timing, being in the right place at the right time, in the right mindset. And so I would share with you that what you're going through isn't something which is unique. There's been literally thousands, millions of other people who've experienced the very, very same situation. The second thing that I would share with you is I believe that everything that happens to us in life is teaching us something about ourselves. And I believe that everything that happens in our lives is there to help us grow to become higher, fuller expressions of who we're capable of becoming. So what I would share with you, if I was in your shoes, or if I genuinely was your friend and we were sat down, or I was your brother and we were having a conversation, I would say to you, what has this taught you about yourself? Because perhaps this has taught you that maybe you are longing for love more than what you thought you were longing for love. Perhaps this has taught you that you're somebody who's very much driven more as for a need for love, for a need for connection than other people. Right? I remember when I was studying Tony Robbins taught about the 6 human needs. And he talked about the fact that every single one of us, those 6 human needs, and you'll have to bear with me because, again, I don't remember them off the top of my head. But in fact, let me try and see if I can find them as I'm sharing this with you. But essentially what he said was that these 6 human needs are all things that we all are looking for. Here they are. So number 1 is that all of us are looking for certainty. Number 2, certainty is like we want things to be stable. Number 2, we all want uncertainty. So uncertainty is like variety. It's like a mix-up, right? We all are looking for significance. We all want to know that we matter. We all are looking for connection, right? I say to people all the time, why do you think people get dogs? Why do you think people get cats? Because many of us are so scared to love, to put ourselves out there, to share that we love somebody, to share that we want to be in a relationship, that we would much rather express that to a dog or to an animal than share it with a human being so that we get rejected, right? That somebody might say, well, you're not enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not rich enough, right? That's why so many people have animals. It's not really surprising. The 5th one is what he talks about as growth, and the 6th one is contribution. And what I'm trying to suggest to you is perhaps this experience has taught you that for you, connection is something which you desire more than other things. In other words, you would much rather have a really loving, stable relationship than, for example, be the manager, be the CEO, be somebody who is a leader, be the president, right? Perhaps it's taught you that you would much rather be the kind of individual who has love in your life than be the person who is a volunteer. But also the other thing that perhaps this has taught you about yourself is that perhaps there is areas of yourself that you need to grow. Maybe part of the reason why this girl doesn't have the desire to get into a relationship with you is because you're kind of needy. And I think all of us, we've experienced this, right? Where we like somebody and we try to change ourselves in order for the person to like us. And inadvertently, what ends up happening is the person actually ends up losing respect for us, right? In fact, if you speak to a lot of women, one of the things that women look for in a man is that they look for a man who is confident. They look for a man who is sure of himself, a man who knows what he wants, who he is, what he's going after. And I wonder whether you are the kind of individual where you are in a position in your life where you know truly who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in, and what you're going after. And maybe you've never even thought about that. You've been so focused on just getting this girl to like you that you've never actually realized that you have something significant to offer her. You know, looking at this from a different perspective, you have to remember that a relationship really only works if both people come forward with bringing something to the table. In other words, a good relationship should constitute where one person perhaps is bringing forward the finances and is bringing the majority of the finances, but the other person is bringing forward a sense and a lack of discipline, a plan, implementation, right? And so you need both of those. And when it's one-sided, where one person is doing everything, it causes a bit of a problem. So what I would share with you next is to think firstly about those. But the other thing that I would ask you to also think about is the fact that this girl has told you that she's not interested in you, and people do genuinely make mistakes, right? And if you hold her hostage and try to say that she has been the person who now she's manipulated you, she's played you, all of us are weak, right? All of us, if we want something, or even if we don't want something, we make mistakes. So what I wouldn't do, particularly if I was you, is make it and put her in a position where she feels like she's done you a disservice, right? Where she feels guilty for having done it. In fact, your job is to rise above that to the degree that you make her feel like, do you know what? It just happened. You're grateful that it happened. Fine, it was a mistake. It was an opportunity for you to grow, whatever it is. But also, one of the other things that I would definitely think about is that I would think about using this opportunity to now improve your communication. I have a rule for myself, which is that whatever is difficult or the thing that I don't want to do, I do it. And the reason why is because I've learned in my life that it is possible to live a very long time but not grow. Because in my life, I've met and worked with people who are like 60, 70, 80, 90 years of age, and they are cynical and they hate people and they resentful about people who did wrong to them, about people why relationships didn't work out. And what I realized was that your age does not determine your maturity, your emotional intelligence, your emotional growth. It doesn't determine it. You can be 70 years of age and act really immature because you haven't developed as a human being. And so what I would share with you is use this opportunity to now talk to her about this situation. So what I would say is, I would actually sit at the dinner table or literally knock on her door and say, can I talk to you about what happened the other day? And again, I'm only telling you this if I was in these same shoes. And I would say, can I talk to you about what happened 2 days ago? Can I talk to you about what happened this? Literally lay it on the table. Let me tell you what I mean by this, because I don't think I'm articulating my point very well. So I learned from Kevin Hart. I'm sure you know who Kevin Hart, the comedian, is. I learned that he said that if there's an elephant in the room and you point out that there's an elephant in the room, it means that nobody can use it against you. It means that everybody is clear about the rules. It means that it's out there in the air and now you can laugh about it, right? So what I would say is, if you wait for her to say something, it's going to make things really awkward. But if you go out there and point out the elephant in the room and go to her and say, look, I know what happened, I just want to say, completely get it. We're all drunk. I appreciate that. Don't worry. I obviously, still like you. However, I have no expectations of this going anywhere. I have I get it. With every single person, every single one of us will make mistakes and we will grow. But it is what it is. That is where, and the place where I would start, and I would personally go from if I was in your shoes. And if you do that, I think it will help you not only to learn how to communicate, but it will also help you to grow maturely, to develop as a man, as a male, right? Because I told you that the day that you move from being a child to being an adult is a day that you take full responsibility, meaning that you say, no matter what happens, no matter the mistakes, no matter what anyone's done to me, I am going to take full responsibility. I'm gonna do the best that I can with what I've got. And I think it would be a really, 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 really interesting journey for you to discover, are you the kind of person who needs to go in that area? Maybe you've never worked on yourself in that area, right? It would be really, maybe perhaps you haven't set boundaries that are loud enough for yourself, right? Because a lot of people, especially when we have desire to be loved, we usually don't have boundaries. We don't know what boundaries are. And I wonder whether you've ever looked into that. So that's what I would share with you. I don't know whether that's kind of useful or not, but I hope it helps you out. But thank you very much for the question. I really like that question. It got me to think quite deeply. So let's go on to the second question. So the second question is entitled, Mum's Making Me Pay Unexpected Bills. And it goes something like this. Hi, my mum took out a phone contract for me around September of 2016, which I didn't ask for, but was very grateful. And it ended in September 2018. She did not realize that the contract doesn't cancel automatically, which means EE was charging her every month. She then realized all of these bills all around the same time at the start of 2019 and made me pay for them even though I'd not taken the phone contract out myself. And then we closed the account. However, a year and a half later, EE sent me a letter saying that there's still another bill that's outstanding. I phoned them to complain, yet they said that the bill needs to be paid for. My question is, I don't know how to approach the topic with my mum because I understand the phone was mine, but I didn't use it after September 2018, and so all of these bills have little to do with me. I also paid for what was remaining at the end, yet she's still making me seem like it's my fault. Am I being silly / selfish? Any help to tackle this would be very helpful. Thanks. All right, so firstly, thank you very much for the question. Secondly, I would like to say that, this situation is a similar situation that many of us find ourselves in. Whilst the details of your story may be different, right? Meaning you got the contract out in 2018 and somebody else might have got the contract out in 2020. Yet the details are still the same. So actually, you're not alone in this situation. And in fact, many people throughout our lives, we will be put not only by our family members, but with people who we encounter, we will be put in situations where we are having to take accountability for things that are outside of our control, that are not really to do with us. And so one of the first things that I would share with you is I absolutely love the fact that you've already paid the first bill. Secondly, I love the fact that you're even asking this question. I would personally, if I was in your shoes, just pay the whole thing off again. Let me explain to you why. Life is so brief and life is so short that I personally have no intention whatsoever on majoring in minor things. I have no intention whatsoever of spending a huge amount of my time and day worrying and fussing over things that are insignificant. If you look at it, and this is the way that I do it. The way that I do it is I fast forward to when I'm 70 and 80 and 90 years of age, and I ask myself, if I didn't pay that bill, would it be more of a regret than if I paid the bill? And for me, when I start thinking about this, I just think, do you know what? If I pay the bill, fine. I mean, what is it going to be? £100, £200, whatever it is going to be, I'll just pay it. Is that really, in the great scheme of my life, really going to cause me that much problem? And for me, the answer would be no. Because the heartache and the problems they're just not worth it. Let me give you a perfect example of what I mean by this, because just to really illustrate this point. About 2 months ago, I lent somebody £30. Somebody who I work with, I lent them 30 quid. They had no money, it was raining on that day, they wanted to take a taxi home, they'd forgotten their wallet. I gave them the money, fine, whatever. They told me that they had cash at their house and that they were going to pay me back the next day. Next day came around, I was at work, they didn't pay me again. This guy gets paid every Friday. So this was on the Tuesday that I'd given them money. On the Wednesday, he didn't pay me the money. So I said, you know what? He'll just give me the money on the Friday. Came the Friday when he got paid, didn't give me the money. The next week, I then say to him, what's going on with the money? Are you going to give me the money? He doesn't give me the money. It got to the point after 2 weeks where I just thought, is me worrying and having this conversation and speaking to him really worth the aggravation versus me just letting it go? So what I did is I just let it go. It's 30 quid. And I thought to myself, is really 30 quid really worth the aggravation, the heartache, the annoyance that I'm experiencing and going through, and the resentment that I'm having for this person? Is it really worth it? Right? Because what I notice about myself, and this is why I tell you this, what I notice about myself is I started telling everybody around me. So in other words, this little £30, which really was insignificant, began to become like cancer. This is why resentment is so dangerous, right? People don't really understand the implications of being a resentful person. But because this firstly begins off with anger, right? When you're angry at somebody and you think if they don't do something, if they shouldn't treat you like this, or they should do this, and when they don't do it, you then become resentful, right? Because you're like, I feel like they've missed me, they've not given me something. I feel like I deserve more. I feel like I've been cheated, right? And then what that resentment then goes and does is you inevitably go and essentially try to trip the person over without them knowing. So what I found myself doing was telling other people about what he'd done to me, right? And he wasn't there, he wasn't present. And I just thought, right, it's just not worth it for me. So personally, in answer to your question, I'd take full responsibility and say, do you know what? Whatever is going to happen, just give me the money and I'll pay for it. The next thing that I would do is I'd get a book called Boundaries. My God, what's the guy's name? There is a book called Boundaries by a guy called Henry Cloud. And I would buy that book and I would read it. Because the situation that you're describing is very, 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 very similar in its structure to what this doctor talks about, right? Because a lot of us, we don't understand that actually the biggest people who we're going to fight against in the world is not our enemies. They're not people who we don't know. The biggest enemy that we're going to fight in our lives, apart from ourselves, is our own family. A lot of people don't realize, if you've ever studied successful people, the people who stab you when you are successful, or who write things and leak things into the newspapers, are not strangers or your enemies. They're usually your own family members. So actually, a lot of us, because our family, we take them for granted, and we make the assumption that our family is not dangerous, our family would never hurt us, most of us actually have a blind side. We end up getting violated the most by our own family members. It's interesting for me to go off on a slight tangent to illustrate this point a bit further. I've spent a lot of time studying men and women who've killed their partners. Right? I've studied criminology quite a fair bit because I've had to study the dark side of life in order to understand the light. You cannot fully grasp something unless you understand both sides of it. And it was absolutely fascinating for me when a murder occurs, and I didn't know this, and I may have been naive, but this is fascinating. When a murder occurs anywhere, in any country, the first people that they interview in connection with the murder is usually the wife, the husband, the brother, whoever has reported the case, whoever called in to say that this person's been murdered or killed or whatever. And I thought to myself, that's a bit bizarre. Why would the police be wanting to interview the person who's called up saying my husband or my wife is dead? And what of course, as I studied this, I began to see is that it is always either the brother, the sister, the mum, the dad, the wife, is always the person who is the closest that ends up murdering the person, right? And I was like, that's insane. So what I would do is I'd buy that book by Boundaries, and I would, because it seems to me that you are going to basically have to build some boundaries with your mum. You know, it's interesting for me because as I've been writing a book, one of the things that I've been writing in that book is that your parents can only teach you what they know. And if your parents didn't have boundaries with their parents, guess what? Why would they have boundaries with you, right? In fact, I've spent a lot of time looking at why relationships break up. And one of the common reasons why relationships break up is because of, well, there's actually four. If you want to know what the four most common reasons for the breakup of a marriage or a relationship, it's number one, money. Money is by far the number one thing that breaks up a relationship. Number two is religion. Or like faith. Number three is family. And number four is kids. Meaning, how do we raise our kids? How many kids do we have? Are they vegetarian? Do we send them to private school? Anyway, point being is that third one, which is family. Family is a big problem for a lot of relationships because, of course, some people don't have boundaries for their own families because they've never had to have them. And do you know how tough it is to say to your mum, you cannot keep coming round to our house at any time that you want? I've personally learned something about women which has fascinated me. Women do not like other women in their space. Meaning, if a woman owns her own home, she does not want another woman, any woman, including her own mother or her mother-in-law, coming round telling her how this cupboard is bad, or she doesn't like the layout of this, or you should have an extension on this. It's like a no-no to women. Women do not like other women in their space at all. And of course, what I tell you this because if you don't learn to set boundaries for yourself, especially from your mum, it would seem, which is clearly a relationship where there is no boundaries, you're going to have a lot of problems down the road. And I would personally begin that journey of setting boundaries because it isn't going to happen in one time. It's going to take you a little while for you to form it because clearly you've not really developed that. And clearly you love your mum, which is why I'm guessing in the first place she got the contract for you, right? I also want to say one further thing related to this, which I absolutely love. I love the fact that you say, my mum got me my phone contract and I was grateful for it. Because this tells me you're somebody who appreciates your family. It tells me you're somebody who genuinely cares. It tells me you're somebody who appreciates the good that people do for you. So that already puts you on a right track. Now, we just need to refine a little bit of who you are, and that book will get you on that journey. I want to finish off with one final thing, which I want to share with you, which is this. I have a philosophy, which is whatever problem you're having in your life, study it. In other words, become like a doctor for whatever problem that you're having. A lot of us, we have a tendency to go to the doctors and ask the doctor for advice, and then take that advice as absolute, not understanding that the doctor can be wrong. So what I would do is I would actually start studying your own subject yourself, right? Any problem that you're having in your life, study it, become a doctor in it. Know, what does this mean? Why am I feeling like this? Why did this problem with my mum occur? Start looking at that, because as you start looking at that, you're going to develop this incredible self-awareness, right? Which is what's going to allow you to be able to have the most incredible life. That's what I would share with you. It's your life though, however, you do as you wish. So I hope that kind of helps you out, but thank you very much for the question. So that leads us to the third question or scenario which I want to talk about, which is entitled, should I go and visit my boyfriend? He's struggling with lockdown. Oh, wow. This is actually something very, very, very similar. I've heard this a lot of times, which is why I chose to talk about it. So the scenario goes something like this. My boyfriend has depression. He's really been struggling right now due to the past things coming up again. He's been self-harming and is suicidal. He's going through the process of getting some professional help, but it's taking a long time and he isn't keen on it. I'm in Wales, so I'm in tier 4. He lives 2 hours away in England, where he lives, and he's just gone into tier 4. I've not been anywhere for the past few weeks, and I've barely left my room, so I'm very confident that I would not be passing COVID onto him. I'm very worried about him. He's always happy when I'm with him. I know he needs cheering up. What should I do? Whilst I know the seriousness of the pandemic, I feel I should just go, and his and my mental health is just as important. But I'm worried about getting stopped. Wow. Okay. This is a fascinating question. I'm going to give you an answer to this question literally as if it was me. So the first thing that I would share with you is this. I strongly believe that every single one of us in life, in order to truly live a good life, we have to get to the point where we determine when is appropriate to break rules. Now, I want to differentiate rules and laws. A law has consequences built into it. Meaning, if you go and jump off the top of a building, I'm telling you that the law, we don't have to arrest you. We don't have to do anything. The law of gravity will automatically punish you. Right? We know it. It's built into the law. We know that if you kill somebody and we find out, right, which most of the time we do, the law is built, the consequences are built into the law, meaning we don't even have to judge it. We know inherently, all of us, that taking the life of another human being is wrong. Now, a rule is not inherent, is not built. A rule is a set of parameters which we have been, as human beings, we predetermined and said we should stick within this. However, human beings can, in certain instances, break rules. And I want to say that rules are there to keep structure, to keep certainty, to keep stability. That's the reason why they're there, right? And they work. That's why we have them. If you, for example, played football and there were no rules, there would be anarchy. Everyone would just be doing whatever they wanted. So rules make the playing field, I guess, equal. They make the playing field even. But I would share with you that I strongly believe that every single one of us has to get to a point in our lives when we differentiate when we should break rules. I would personally say to you that you already know the answer to this question. Whilst you're asking me this question, you already know what you're going to do. This isn't an actual question. This is actually a rhetorical question because you already know the answer to this, right? I think part of determining when is important to break rules is really looking at what is it that is important to you. And as you so politely pointed out, whilst I know the seriousness of the pandemic, I feel that I should go as his health and my mental health is just as important. And so what I would share with you is, if you genuinely believe at the bottom of your heart that this is something which is important, where his life is in danger, then I would say to you that you have every right to break a rule. Now, I'm not saying to you go and do it, but what I'm saying to you is, if that is what you believe is the truth for you and is the right thing for you, then you should do it. The reason why I'm saying this is because when you decide to break rules, there are going to be consequences. And the question is, and this is why I ask you, do you genuinely believe this is the truth for you? Because if you do not genuinely believe this is the truth for you and you break the rule, what will happen is that you will end up resenting people and resenting the situation and resenting the consequences, because you will feel as though it's unfair. So when if let's say, for example, you decide to leave, you're driving down there, you get stopped on the motorway and they ask you, where are you going? And then they arrest you, you will say it's their fault. You will say it's the police, they shouldn't have stopped me. Right? But if you genuinely believe it and they stop you and you know that what the consequences are going to be, then when they arrest you, you say, do you know what? I kind of knew this would happen and I knew it would happen and I accept the consequences. Instead of you fighting them, you just say, I knew this was going to happen anyway. So what I would share with you is, have you determined for yourself what is so important that you would be prepared to get arrested, to have a criminal record, to be fined, so that you can still carry it out? Because, you know, I spend a considerable amount of my time training individuals who want to become the best in the world. Individuals who want to achieve great things. And one of the things that I tell them is, if you truly want to do great things in your life, you will have no choice but to break rules, right? Because convention does not leave room for creativity. You cannot be creative and still stay in the box. To be creative means that there is no box. You break every rule. You disrupt everything, right? If you decide to break rules, you decide to disrupt stuff. So if you're going to disrupt stuff, you have to understand that there is going to be consequences with that. And if you are, and so what I say to people is, if you truly want to live a great life, it means that you're going to have to break convention. By breaking convention means that you are going to have wrath behind you, following you. So my question to you is, what do you believe in so much that you're willing to break the rules, you're willing to break tradition, you're willing to break the norm, that you would be willing to suffer whatever the consequences would be? For example, if you genuinely believe that a human being has whether they're black or white or Chinese or Indian, has the same equal value, and you find that one of your family members is violating that, would you be prepared to abandon your own family members because of that conviction? A lot of people don't know what that is. A lot of people, see, I found the reason why a lot of people, let me go back. Somebody once said that the biggest problem in the world is not people who do bad. The biggest problem in the world is people who see people doing bad and then do nothing about it. And I found that the reason why people do nothing about stuff is because they don't know when is too far. What is the line? What line, if it's crossed, I can no longer watch, I can no longer see, I can no longer participate in? A lot of people don't know what that line is. So that's one of the first things that I would share with you. The other thing that I would share with you is, you said something which really set my alarms off. You said that he's always happy when I'm with him. Now, this set alarm bells off for me, because this means that without him or without you, he is not complete. He is not full. Which tells me that you want to be very, 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 very careful to make statements such as, if I'm not with him, he is not happy, he is incomplete. You want to be encouraging not only yourself, but also your partner to be on a journey where you're both individuals, but you're both walking in the same direction, heading for the same vision, working for the same things, fighting the same battles, not one as one fighting the same battle. Because what happens is, if he dies, then you die. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? And a lot of actually the problems, especially with codependency, where it begins is where an individual believes that kind of belief system where somebody is not complete without them. You need to eradicate it out of your mindset that he is not okay without you. And your job actually, because, hold on a minute, let me go back. Let me firstly say this. No human being can change another human being. Somebody once said that a person forced against their will is still of the same opinion. So in other words, you cannot help your boyfriend heal through this journey that he's currently going through, where he's cutting himself, where he's feeling suicidal, where he's feeling depressed. That is not something which you can help him on. Now, don't get me wrong. You can make suggestions. You can point him in the right direction. You can say, go speak to this counselor, go speak to this doctor. Even a doctor can say, take this medicine. But ultimately, he is the one who has to go through the journey. I would add and recommend to you that you do not get so consumed in trying to help your partner through this journey that you basically almost, how do I put this? You almost become him. I guess, I don't know whether I've articulated that well, but you basically want to take the position of like a doctor. You're there to help him heal through his process, not to force him and to say you have to do this or you have to do that. It's his life. He has a choice to do whatever it is that he wants to do. So what I would do is if I was in your position, I would be looking at, have I pointed it and made all the available choices available to him? Number one, have I shown him the services of where to go for suicide? Am I speaking to him? Is he healthy? Am I loving? Am I giving him encouragement? Have I made sure that I've done the absolute best that I can to go out of my way to speed up his process of somebody speaking to him? Right? Do I know a doctor? Do I know somebody else who knows a doctor who can go and speak to him? Right? In other words, you want to do everything in your power that you can to facilitate helping him, but not get involved to the degree where you're taking over his journey. I don't know if I've kind of made sense. Let me try to use a metaphor to explain this. Sometimes, like if you've ever gone to a kid's football match, sometimes you will watch a father on the sidelines shouting at the child, telling the child, you shouldn't have tackled that, you should have scored that. And you sometimes think, hold on a minute, your job is not to do that for your child. It's not to tell him how he should be playing football. Your job is to say, son, I think this would be the best recommendation. I think this was a better move to make here. And let him decide the move that he wants to make. Does that make sense, metaphorically speaking, what I mean by that? I don't know if I've articulated that to the best of my ability. But you want to ensure that you equip and give the most available resources at your disposal to your other half so that he can actually ride through that journey. So that if you weren't there, God forbid something were to happen to you, he would still be okay. In other words, let me use another metaphor to explain this. You want to be like scaffolding. You come in, you're resourceful, you give him whatever he needs as support, and then you back away. right? He is all of us at some point need scaffolding. We need a little bit of support, but then after that, you have to back off. You do not want to be in a position where the scaffolding remains, because God forbid something were to happen and the roof hasn't been fixed and the scaffolding removes itself because life happens. Who would be taking care of the roof? And I'm just speaking metaphorically here. But remember, things will be okay. Things will get better. Remember that no winter lasts forever, and you can make it through this, and both of you are going to make it through this. And I would just encourage you to really look at those two things that I've suggested to you. So that leads us to the fourth scenario that I want to talk about, which is written as, should I do resits or not? And it goes something like this. He said, I took a gap year this year, which was always my original plan. However, when I ended up with C's for A-levels and not getting into the uni I wanted to, I thought that I would retake my A-level bio and psychology. However, my college wouldn't take me back, so I started revising independently. I applied again this year for oral health at King's and QMUL. However, I am already held back as I don't meet the requirements for the course, as I'm stuck with a C for chemistry, which I'm not retaking. I recently found out how expensive it is to resit with £400 per subject. I haven't heard from King's or QMUL yet, but I'm now not really sure if I want to resit anymore if I don't even get any offers from them. I have a conditional offer for Westminster where many of my friends are, and although it's not the course I originally wanted to do, I'm okay with my choice there. Should I resit for £800 in the small chance I may get an offer? I'm still waiting for their response, but I don't want to wait too long as there is a deadline to book resits as well. It's all very daunting at the moment. Wow, that's one hell of a question. Okay, so there's a lot here that I want to talk about. Firstly, I would say to you that this scenario is a scenario that a lot of people experience. A lot of people, not just who are young people, but actually adults, have this scenario. Should I get married? Should I not get married? Should we get married in 2 years? Should we get engaged first and then get married later? Should we have 2-year engagement? Should we have kids? Should we have 2 kids? Should we have kids after we get married? Should I take this job? No, should I ask for a pay rise now? Should I do this job and then go into management? Should I move aside and get into management as a lower store and then work my way through up there and then go to a bigger store? At every single stage of life, we're all going to have these big questions that are daunting and that are what I call defining. So you've clearly reached a defining point. But actually, before you continue, I'm going to give you a phrase which altered the course of my life. So before you even think about applying or resetting, I would firstly ask myself a question. And I'm going to give it to you in terms of a phrase because this phrase altered the course of my life. So I heard the phrase that the best time to have the map is before you enter the woods. Let me explain to you why that statement is so significant. The reason that statement is significant is because a lot of people simply enter the woods without ever having looked at the map. And what I mean to you is, before you even start talking about university, before you even start talking about what you want to do, about which courses you need to reset money-wise, I would firstly ask myself the question, what do I want for my life? Because actually, when you decide that bigger question, because the issue is you are basically trying to avoid this question. This question of what do I want out of my life is actually the question which is the real question. These other questions that you're asking aren't the real question. It's like somebody going to the doctors and saying, oh doctor, I feel a headache, right? I'm tired all the time. I just want you to give me some pills. Well, no, it doesn't work like that. Because one of the things that the doctor will do is the doctor will ask you, why are you tired? What have you been doing that's giving you headaches, right? Because what the doctor is trying to do is get to the root of the problem. Actually, the root of the problem is you don't work out, you don't eat properly, you don't go to bed at the right time. That's actually the problem, right? And so the actual answer that you need is completely different to the question that you're asking. So what I would share with you and I would ask you to think about is this question of what do you actually want out of your life? Meaning, what do you want to become? What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And if you don't know the answer to that question, what I would do is I would take 2 or 3 days to do this exercise. Okay, I'm going to give you an exercise. This is the exercise that I now give people who are stuck and they want to do great things in their life, but they're a bit kind of hindered. So this is what I would share with you. The first thing you want to do is you want to go and get a journal or a piece of paper. If you don't have a journal, go and get a piece of paper. Take a pen, and all I want you to do is to write down what you want from your life in the next 10 years. I'm not talking about in the next 50, 60, 70. I'm just talking in the next 10 years. If everything worked out perfectly, if everything went right, what would you want from your life? The goal is to have 500 things on that list. Now, I'm telling you this because I know you're not going to have 500 things. Number one, you're too young, so you're not even aware of what exists in the world. But the second thing that I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to help you to expand your vision, your awareness of what actually exists. Because your current problem at the moment is you essentially see the world in the way that you either go to this university or you do your research. Those are the only 2 options that essentially in your world are available. Of course, there are loads of other options. You could not go to university altogether. You could go abroad. You could go and do an apprenticeship. You could go and do the courses online. I could go on and on and on and on. But the issue is, at the moment, those maps don't even exist in your world. And so what I would share with you is by you taking that pen and that journal or piece of paper and attempting to write down 500 things is going to get your mind to start thinking creatively. You're going to be an individual who's going to start looking at different routes, different theories, right? And you may find that actually the routes that you currently are engaged in do not actually take you to any of the things that you want, right? Because, for example, you might write down that actually you want to be somebody who is happy. But the route that you're going down, which is to become, I think, an oral health, or I'm guessing that is a dentist, you may write down that one of your goals is to be happy. That path might not take you there, because what actually brings you happiness is that you love to do stuff that is different, has variety every day. Every day you do something different. But with becoming a dentist is repetitive. Every day is the same thing. You might say, I want to live a life where every day I'm creating something. You can't really create something. Well, you can do, but it's limited. Your level of creativity is limited as a dentist. Do you see what I'm saying by this? This is why I say to you that the best time to have the map is before you enter the woods, right? So right now you want to build a map as to where does each choice that you make take you. It doesn't have to be absolutely certain if I take this road, because like any journey, as you go there, there'll be diversions, there'll be traffic jams, all that kind of stuff is going to happen. But what you want to do is you want to align yourself at least so that you're heading in the right direction, right? Cassim, you might say, Cassim, you know, my entire family have all been in poverty. I want to be the first person to not be in poverty, which means that the route to taking that might be slightly a bit different. You might have to do something different than what they've done. You might say, Cassim, actually, I'm somebody who wants to get married by 25. Well, how are you going to get married by 25 if you have this huge commitment of becoming a dentist? And obviously, I'm not exactly too sure what your path is because you haven't exactly mentioned it. But I'm just suggesting to you that you will want to really examine the path that you're on and which way it's leading you. Where is it going? And the bigger question is it what you want? Really? Because the great thing about being 19, 18, 20 is that you literally can build your life. There is no parameters. There are no boundaries. You can literally dream whatever you want and you can go out there and create it. I can share with you that one of the great things about life is life will move and change to fit whatever it is that you want for it, for yourself. It will move, it will manifest itself, it will mold, right? Somebody once said that life is plastic. Life has this amazing way of working for you when you know exactly what it is that you want out of it. And you can do that. You know, a lot of the things that we all want from our life and you're going to want in your life, somebody's already got it. And if somebody's already got what you want, all you have to do is find the map to how they got it and follow it. You may not get the exact results, but you're going to get there or thereabouts. That is what I have found personally. So that answers this week's questions. I don't know whether it's been useful for you guys or not. But I want to finish off by saying thank you very, very, very much for listening. Thank you very, very, very much for taking the time. If you guys have any questions that you want to share, that you want me to answer, don't be shy. Send me a message and I will do my absolute best to try and answer them. But otherwise, apart from that, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel Cassimotive on YouTube. But we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.